Hi everybody. I'm not going to go through the whole process of putting the shelf brackets up. I am following this book. I highly recommend this book if you're going to build a shelf layout or a switching layout. And he talks about the tools you need and gives some of the basic process in here. Plus there's a ton of videos on YouTube that you can find on how to mount shelf brackets and everything. But I wanted to give you one tip that I'm doing anyhow, that's maybe not covered in this book. Okay, so the shelf brackets that I'm using have this little tab up here, and I guess that's to hook a wire, shelf on to lay across here, and that's just going to get in the way of my door. So I don't want that on there. So I cut it off. Luckily, I have some metal cutting tools. I have a sawzall with a metal blade and grinder and things like that for when I work on my truck. So I just cut it off and ground it down. So that'll be flat. And on the top I'll do the same thing, but I just wanted to show you this one. So I've already got this temporarily put up. Now, my track height on the other layout is 54 inches, and I like it. I like that. So this is 52. These two boxes are 2 inches. I measured them. So that is going to be my track height right there. So now I need to figure the height of my valance, how I want to, the viewing area I want. So I've got this one up here about where I want it right now. So I'll drop the valance down a little bit, and I've got a 12 or 13 inch viewing window, which works out well for me. At my height, my wife's pretty short, and she can come in there and see it okay too. I mean, she's down more eye level than I am, but it's okay. This is just a good height for me. I like, being up that high. But what I don't want is I don't want all this sticking up above, because you'll be able to see it from when you get distance. If you're right up here, you won't be able to see. Obviously, the valance would hide it. But when you're walking through the hall and things like that, you can see it. So I'm going to cut this off. I've marked it. I'm going to cut my 3 brackets off, and then I'll screw this one up, and I'll put my other 2 brackets up. So that's the only purpose of this. Again, if you have any questions, you can ask them in the comments. But like I said, there's a million videos on YouTube by people who do this for a living that can probably give you better instruction than me. I'm going to mount it. I've got these 3-inch deck screws with a T25 head. I don't really like the Phillips head because the farther in they go, the more likely it is to strip it. So these things, you hardly can strip them. 3-inch will be very solid. I'm going into only studs. I'm not going to use any other anchors or anything like that, which you can. So they're going to end up not evenly across here when you see, because my wife wants the end of the layout to be even with this dresser, and so it's the hollow core door is solid enough that it don't have to be evenly spaced out. There's not a lot of weight on it. So that's all I wanted. I'll pick up after I've got the shelf temporarily up there, so you can see how I've done. That's pretty fast and easy. It's level. I've got the level sitting there. This is the valance. This is the other door. So this door is going to be sitting up on top of this, and then of course it'll have a fascia on it hanging down 3 or 4 inches, and the lights will be back behind that. I'm going to use the LED rope lights like I have in my other layout. I have 2 ropes on there, and I'll probably do the same thing on this, see how it works out. I will paint, one tip I want to say is I will paint the bottom of this white before I put it up there, so it reflects more light, either light or your sky color, whichever one you're going to do. But this will just sit up there. Of course, you can use that as a shelf. Once it's up there, it can collect all kinds of crap like I've got in my other one. These shelf brackets, and he even talks about it in the book, when you put the level on this way, they lean forward a little bit. So he even talks about you're going to have to go in here and add some shims under here to get the level up. It's not a big deal, thick styrene, something like that, but this way it's level. So I'm going to pan a little bit for you to show you what I'm thinking about on each end, since I have more room in here. So I'm going to go back behind the camera. Okay, so down here, that would represent Wellston, Yard, Jackson. Actually, train originated in Chillicothe, maybe. I think I can have a track curving around temporarily, like he talks about in the little shelf track with the held on by clamp for when I operate. And it's only going to have to hold a train and like 5, 6, 7 cars, something like that. It can just be a couple of feet long. Be curved, so it'll be a little bit. Unless I can come straight out, I can temporarily move this, basket. I don't know if that's always going to be there or not. Some of the stuff on the shelf is going to go somewhere else. But anyhow, I can have a little bit of staging on this end, represent Jackson and Wellston. On the other end, I've got a lot more space too, so I can have track on that end representing the south end of the layout, which will be South Webster. So I'm hoping that I can at least have 2 or 3 foot staging on each end of this layout, which I don't have on the other, but I can't leave it there all the time. On this one, I'm probably more likely to be able to leave it there, but it's not going to be in the way as much as it is on the other end of the shelf. All right. So what I'm going to do next, that's the last warm day we're going to have. I'm going to go out to the garage and I'm going to glue down the track, and I'll show you that. And I'll just let the track sit up and dry, and then I'll move it in here and I can start working on the wiring. I ordered some 22 gauge solid wire, found a place I could get it in 25 feet instead of like 100 feet. Pretty cost effective. So when that gets here, I've already got my bus wire, suitcase clamps or suitcase connector should be here pretty soon. So I'll start the wiring and I'll do it in here. I actually flip the layout upside down probably to do the wiring. Make it a lot easier to work on. So I'll show you how I glue the track down next. Back in the garage again. Hopefully this is the last time you'll see me filming out here. Trying to talk loud. Hopefully you can hear me okay, because I'm a pretty good distance away from the camera. I've got the upper door painted white. Again, this is the part that's going to go down toward the layout. The lights will attach to this. Pretty simple. I'll probably do a whole video on how to finish it, put the fascia on and all that later on. Right now it's drying. 2 coats of ceiling paint. Doesn't really matter if it's perfect. You're never going to see it. You've probably never seen it in any of my videos. Just the white helps reflect light. If this layout was going to be in a garage, in this case I don't have to worry about it because the door is already finished, it's already varnished. But I would probably paint everything to seal it if I was going to have a humidity problem. So if you're going to do a shelf layout in a garage or use something like that, I would probably try to seal the whole thing. Anyhow, but again, I don't have to worry about it in this case. So over here, you can see I've got the pins pulled up. Again, the track is not all soldered together. In his book, Lance Mindheim says don't solder the joints. I have always soldered joints. Mother Railroad, every joint is soldered. But if you have enough feeders, you don't really have to worry about it. So I probably will not solder all the joints. However, when you're dealing with flex track and you're trying to curve it, a lot of times you have to solder it before you make the curve. So for instance right here where the turnout comes out and I've got a little bend, I soldered that joint. Now I'm not going to go through the whole thing watching me glue it down because he tells how to do it in the book and it'll put you all to sleep. So I'm just going to use this school glue. It's what I've got. I probably would have rather used white glue, but I don't have any of that right at the moment. But I could use, I've got the stuff to put the board together with. You could use anything, but once the ballast is down and all that, the track's not going to go anywhere. I'm not worried about it. This is just to hold it in place until I get it inside. So I'm going to take it apart. Let's see. So this section right here is a section. I think it actually could come apart in a couple other places, but I'll leave it like that. I'm going to take my white glue. Yep. put it on the, and you're going to want to smooth it out because you don't want it to, you know, bubble up through the ties. Again, this is just, you know, hold it down till the ballast and everything's done. So you're going to smooth it out with your finger. I'll do the rest of this section off camera, and then I'll put it in place and pin it down and show you what that looks like. Okay, so I've got the glue all spread out. I've got the track back in place, held down with pins. Something you have to think about is you don't want to put a lot of glue right underneath the turnouts. If it would bubble up through into the rails that move, then you could be fighting that for a while. So don't put much glue right there, just like when you ballast. You don't want to put any glue there either. Another thing I had to think about is I've got this track shimmed up over 21 thousandths of an inch, which isn't much, but I dropped down. The siding is not, so I'm actually dropping down to the board level. If I would pin it right here, I could have a leaning track, could have derailments. So I didn't pin it there, I pinned it out here, and I made sure that, you know, I don't have a lean there. You know, I've actually got a little shim underneath here to make sure that that track is not, you know, I want it to be a very gradual dip down to the other level. I'm not sure if that's really going to be that effective or not. I liked it on the diorama. I thought it was pretty effective, and I've done that in past layouts where I've actually used, you know, cork road bed, and that's a whole lot taller than 21 thousandths, and had to, you know, file it down to make a smooth transition. So I think it'll work okay. So anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of the layout, and after it's dry and I carry it inside, I'll show you what it looks like in place. Well, the glue is dry. I do have to confess that where I have the main line on the styrene, the pins held it down pretty well. But those pins going into the foam really didn't hold. So I got out some wrenches and set down everything until the glue dried, just to make sure that, you know, it wasn't up in the air, because those pins just wouldn't hold in the foam. I'm still in the garage because I decided I'm going to do the soldering of the feeder wires out here. That way when I drill the holes, I won't be getting, you know, dirt in the house. I don't have to worry about dropping a hot soldering iron on our carpet or a blob of solder or anything like that. Plus this way I can access both sides of the rail. And I won't be like leaning over trying to solder. So I can, you know, just walk around it and solder all the feeders on. Hopefully I'll get my wire this week. I still need to drill the holes, and but I'll show you, I'll do a short video on how I solder the feeders on. But it's not really going to be an instructional video because there's so many other ones out there. I've watched them in preparation for this. Ron's Trains of Things has a really good video on soldering feeder wires. So there's a lot of people that have been model railroading for a long time and are really good at this. There's another one I recommend would be the DCC guy. Really good electronics advice. But I will sort of demonstrate where I'm going to put my feeders, and at least try to show you how I solder one or two of them anyhow. That won't look too bad. But I'll go ahead and post this up, and the next video will probably be where I'm working on the lighting valence and the fascia for that. There's no reason I can't go ahead and get that done. As soon as I get the lights in, I can go ahead and put that in place, and that'll help me having those lights up there as I work on the layout. So I'll be posting that probably later in the week. So everybody stay safe, and don't hesitate to ask me any questions, post comments down below.